Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In honor of Veterans Day this month, we are going to devote our entire episode to veterans issues. When it comes to scams, our risk report shows that the susceptibility and median loss reported by military families and veterans versus non-military is higher. Military consumers reported losing an average of $204 to military scams to BBB's scam tracker last year. That's $44 more than the average loss reported by a non-military consumer. Online purchase scams, employment scams, phishing scams, and home improvement scams were the top reported scams to BBB scam tracker by military spouses and veterans last year. Now, this graphic has a lot of information on it. I want you to look at the first row and go all the way to the right. You see that veterans are exposed to scams much more frequently than military spouses and active duty military, 68% versus just 7% for active duty military. Of course, it makes sense. They're busy serving our country and not necessarily in situations where they would be exposed to scams. However, look at the next row. Active duty military are targeted the least, but are the most susceptible to falling for scams and most likely to lose money, the most money. So when they are exposed, they are more likely to fall victim. Now, they're probably in situations where they have to make a quick decision and may not have the advantage of time to do their own research. The median loss is $300. While military spouses, it's $170, and for veterans, it's $220. Connecticut is one of 18 states that sued Harris Jewelry, claiming that it marked up its jewelry between 600 and 1,000% and also misled service members so that they would sign finance agreements with high interest rates. The Federal Trade Commission was also part of that suit. The company agreed to refund more than $10 million for purchase protection plans, provide refunds for overpayments, and cease collections on loans. Connecticut service members and veterans will receive nearly $129 million in refunds and debt relief. The state of Connecticut will also collect a $50,000 penalty. Now, we should note that Harris Jewelry neither admitted nor denied the allegations. As part of the settlement, the company was ordered to shut down its operations and come into compliance with the Military Lending Act. And you can find more information about the suit and how to obtain a refund at ftc.gov. Connecticut's Commissioner on Veterans Affairs, Thomas Saadi, who is also a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve, joins us now to talk about some of the most common scams targeting our military community. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss this important topic.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first of all, what is the Military Lending Act?
Military Lending Act has been approved in stages, and what it really does is protects members of our military, active duty members or those on active duty orders, from predatory lending practices. It caps annual interest rates at a certain level. It requires disclosures to members of the military. It also prohibits early payment penalties and a host of other things that we've seen over the years have targeted Americans more broadly, but military members even more so falling victim to these things because they move around a lot, they may be on orders and not able to pay as close attention to things. So it requires more stricter regulatory adherence to practices, better consumer protection practices for members of our military.
Are there any other protections as far as the federal law goes for members of the military, either veterans or active duty?
There are two main areas of statutes. One is the Service Member Civil Relief Act, the SCRA, which protects those, particularly Guard and Reserve, who are put onto active duty orders. They can terminate leases, whether it's a motor vehicle lease, whether it's a housing or apartment lease. Their interest rates are capped based on their ability to pay when they're mobilized, sent overseas, because some people may actually be making less money when they're mobilized into military than in their civilian position. There's a host of protections against civil lawsuits and getting default judgments against members of the military when they're not present to be able to defend themselves. It doesn't apply to criminal actions, but it's civil lawsuits. And then there's the USERA, which is the Uniformed Service Members Employment Rights Act. And that protects those who have civilian jobs, who are activated, to be able to come back to their jobs, to not be discriminated against if, like me, a reserve soldier, I am called up on temporary orders. My employer says, you know, I don't like the fact that you go once a month or this, now you have to go for 2 weeks on military duty. You're fired. Can't do that. So there's a host of federal protections, but there's also a lot of state consumer protection laws and regulations through banking regulations, consumer protection regulations that protect our military and their family members, both who are serving as well as veterans.
Now, it's not just Harris Jewelry. The military community is often exposed to scams more than civilians, and our data shows they're more likely to fall victim to scams. Why is that?
I think there's several factors. One of them is that if someone is on active duty, the scam artists know this person has regular pay. They know they're getting paid. They also know that in the military, if you have a lawful debt that's owed and you don't pay that and you're put into collections, that can affect your security clearance. It can become a disciplinary issue. And so the scam artists know that members of the military generally are going to pay because they don't want to have to go to court, potentially lose a security clearance, potentially have a disciplinary issue. Also, many veterans have pensions, whether pensions because of the length of the duty or disability payments because of a line of duty incurred injury of some kind. And so those are regular payments. Also, members of our military over the past 2 decades in Iraq and Afghanistan, oftentimes you had younger members who now were flush with money from their military service. And you have these scam artists targeting them outside bases with payday loans, with these hidden interest rate vehicle leases or financing for big trucks and cars and jewelry too, because oftentimes, whether it's a man or a woman who's in the military, they might, be getting married or want to give an engagement ring or just to buy jewelry before they leave. And so excessive prices, excessive financing, oftentimes, like was the case with Harris Jewelry, for poor quality and overpriced products.
You kind of mentioned a couple other examples, payday loans. We often hear spouses of military, they get hit with the home improvement type scams. But what kind of scams do you find that you're hearing about the most?
So, as Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, I do hear about some of them, but also the hat I previously wore was at the Attorney General's office as an Assistant Attorney General. So now in my current position, we continue to work with the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection and the Office of the Attorney General under General William Tong. We have a great relationship. So what we generally see is it is a lot of those payday type loans and high interest loans, and veterans or service members not knowing what protections are out there for them. You mentioned the home improvement scams. So you get a unscrupulous contractor or just a scam artist who knows that whether it's a man or a woman, whose spouse is overseas, or maybe they're a dual military family and they're gone and someone's taking care of their home and something has to get done quickly, they take advantage of that, of people not being present to protect their rights. And even if they do the work, maybe excessive overcharging or financing rates. Also see the issue of donation fraud. And so there's 3 areas when it comes to donations, and it's usually veterans, their family members, or family members and friends of service members, because they're patriotic. They want to contribute to the cause. And so they hear or they get a call from, hi, this is retired Sergeant Joe Smith, and I'm working with ex-veteran organization, whatever it might be. I'm not going to use a particular name. We're collecting donations to help support this cause. Are you a patriotic American? You want to donate to this cause? Do you have someone in the military? Oh, I do. And then they start to talk to them about that. And then a donation is solicited, donation is made, usually with a credit card. So it could be an identity theft scam to get that credit card information. It could be a legitimate donation request. And even if legitimate, it may be to an organization where a lot of the money doesn't get to the cause. I always say, donate locally or donate to established organizations where the money is getting to the cause that they are purportedly supporting.
We've also heard at Better Business Bureau about these scams where they come home and they want to buy their first home. Want to buy their first house, and some of these lenders take advantage of them as well.
Absolutely, because someone returning from military duty, whether it's a reserve or guard who's coming off active duty or someone who is on active duty leaving the military, they probably do have good financing available to them. But the scam artists or the less than scrupulous individuals know this. They know they probably have money in the bank. They know they may have the ability to get some lower interest rates, so maybe they overprice the house. Or the inspectors are in cahoots with the sellers. We've had this when I was at the Attorney General's office. We saw this with unscrupulous inspectors, lenders, and contractors, all working together to basically excessively elevate the price of homes, elevate the financing, sham inspections, and get people into a house. And you have members of the military, especially younger families who are coming off of duty, who need a home. So we haven't seen it as much recently. It was a bigger thing when housing was out of control back in 08, 09, and 10. But it is something to be careful with. The other thing that we see is what's called pension poaching. It's a weird term. So many members of the military are eligible for benefits, service-connected disability rating that will then give them a monthly payment of some kind, or their pension. And you have individuals who market themselves as being able to, I can get your military pension for you. We can get you your service-connected disability from the VA, from the Veterans Benefits Administration, the VBA. And they might charge for it. There never should be a charge for that. No one can guarantee you that you're going to get a particular benefit, whether it's aid in attendance for elderly veterans or widows or widowers, or your service-connected pension or disability. And the state has veteran service officers that do that at no charge. Through my agency, as well as a multitude of veteran organizations in our state, have their own veteran service officers. They represent veterans, service members, and their eligible dependents in filing for health care claims, for pensions, and for benefits at no charge.
If it's a free program, it's a free program.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's illegal to charge people to do that, but people try to blend it into, we're talking about estate planning, or there's an overall package here. No veteran, no service member should be paying to file for their benefits.
It's so disturbing when you think about who are the victims here. These are people that were willing to lay their lives on the line for us, to serve our country, and they're being taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And oftentimes many of them are getting on in years, and they may be more susceptible. They don't have many people around them. So it's not only taking advantage of veterans or their family members, but also elderly. So oftentimes these scams, these crimes, are crimes against seniors, which there are separate statutes and heightened penalties against the scam artists or the criminals that target seniors.
So we've talked about the scams. Now let's talk about the red flags. What should we be looking out for to avoid these scams?
First of all, the old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The second thing I would say, know who you're dealing with, whether it's a phone call, an email, going to a business. Know who you're dealing with. How do you know who you're dealing with when there's an auto dealer or jewelry store or some other type of, or a durable goods sale, an appliance shop? How do you know? You look for references. You look them up online. You see what the reviews and the ratings are. You talk to other people before making a big purchase, especially financing something. Read all the terms and conditions of a financing agreement. Ask somebody before you jump into that pool. Someone else has jumped in before you, so they know whether the water is cold or warm. The other thing, reach out to the Department of Veterans Affairs in Connecticut, the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Consumer Protection, see if there are complaints against a particular business. The BBB, see if there are complaints, what that business is rated as, and what their disclosures are. The other thing to look for is someone pitching something as a patriotic duty over the phone or an email. That's where that messaging generally comes, is, support our troops. Well, of course people want to support the troops, but you get unscrupulous people taking advantage of that patriotism through false representations.
So we always tell people they can visit bbb.org/scam tracker if they want to look up whether something is legitimate or report a scam. Where are some other government agencies where they can report a scam?
So at the federal level, it's a Federal Trade Commission. Just Google FTC or Federal Trade Commission scam, both to file a complaint as well as to look for reports about scams that are out there. The Connecticut Office of the Attorney General, the Consumer Protection Unit. Go onto the AG or CT, Connecticut Attorney General website. The Consumer Protection Unit has both press releases and reports about scams that are out there, and educational materials, as well as will process complaints, and working with the State Department of Consumer Protection, go after those scam artists to try to get restitution. Unfortunately, in our very digital society, these scam artists are crossing not only state lines digitally, but national lines and oceans. So those are very difficult. But when you're dealing with a brick and mortar business or an online business that at least can be reached by law enforcement, civil or criminal, oftentimes action can be taken to help the consumer. But the best defense is education. Knowing who you're dealing with, asking others about a business or a cause before you get involved with it, and always be so very careful with that credit card and with your personal information, birth date, social security number, and credit card.
Research, research, research.
Absolutely.
That's what we always tell people. Before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about you, our commissioner here at Veterans Affairs in Connecticut, because you're also active duty, as I mentioned. So you actually get called up to serve.
I do. I'm an active reservist or reserve soldier. In fact, this month of October being on duty a few times. And so just as anyone in the Reserve or National Guard, I can be called up, notwithstanding the fact that I'm a commissioner. And the state is very supportive. The administration, my thanks to Governor Lamont for supporting my military duty. In fact, I was on active duty for 6 months just before and during the beginning of COVID. And so I had the support of the administration and a great team at the Department of Veterans Affairs who ran the agency, in my absence, and I assisted remotely when I could when I was off duty.
And so you do education when you're called up? You're running
I'm a judge
courses?
advocate, so I'm an Army lawyer.
Okay.
And so part of it is, you prosecute cases, you bring actions, disciplinary actions, but you also educate our military on rules of rule of law, rules of engagement, whatever it might be, administrative law, but also privileged to be able to work with the Defense Institute for International Legal Studies out of the Newport Naval Station, where we work with foreign military officers of partner nations, and we educate them on the rule of law, on the U.S. military code, the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, as well as best practices, and we learn about their legal practice. So when we engage with each other as partner nations, we have a better understanding of our comparative legal systems.
You're not busy.
Just a little bit.
Is it common for Veterans Affairs commissioners to also be active in the military or be reservists?
All the Veterans Affairs commissioners that I've known in the state of Connecticut have been veterans, but the last one was an active reservist, Sean Conley, who was my predecessor.
Yes, I met him.
But generally around the nation, no, they're usually always veterans, but they're generally not still serving either in the Guard or Reserve. There are a few. I'm among that small group.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule for
pleasure.
us, and we thank you for your service.
Thank you so much, and thank you for getting the word out to protect our veterans, service members, and their families.
Hopefully we've educated some people today.
Hope so.
Connecticut's Commissioner on Veterans Affairs, Thomas Saadi.
You got ripped off? Didn't get what you expected? The Better Business Bureau can help you avoid these uncomfortable situations. Look for the BBB seal. It's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Welcome back. Hiring a veteran is a great way to thank them for their service. And there's also benefits to businesses as well. Victor Lopez is the owner of Heat Shock 2, a heating and air conditioning company in Southington, and also a veteran himself. So first of all, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your time in the military.
Well, I went in to learn a trade, and I learned HVAC in the service, where I was direct support for a military intelligence battalion. So we were out in Bosnia, Macedonia, Saudi, Kosovo. So when I was their direct support, maintaining their military intelligence vans, make sure their computer and all their equipment stayed cool.
Okay, and that translated right into heating and air, which we'll talk about in a second. But veterans in general, they have a unique skill set, don't they? What are the benefits of hiring a veteran?
Well, I'll tell you this. One of the biggest benefits that you can benefit from hiring a veteran is the work ethic, the reliability, and the loyalty. Meaning, say something gets put in, it breaks down within a year, we'll be right back there. You call us at 2 in the morning, we'll be there at 2:30.
They're prompt, they're punctual.
Yes.
You own your own company. Tell me about your business, Heat Shock 2.
Well, we started up in 2008. I'd worked for several different companies, and I didn't like the way some things were being done, so I took my military experience and my own thoughts, and I carved them into Heat Shock.
So what specific skills from your time in the military have you been able to carry over into being a business owner?
Being punctual. Being punctual, reliability, and just getting stuff done on time.
And all that training.
Yes.
You know, that was a training that was on the job.
Correct.
Not out of a textbook.
No, this was live. Let's get it done and let's get back home safe.
And then you were able to translate that into your own business.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the importance of veteran-owned businesses and hiring one,
Well,
supporting them.
Well, when you support a veteran, you're supporting not only their dream, okay, but you're supporting, in our eyes, our service to America as well. So we can translate that into you knowing that you're in good hands, because if the government trusts us, you can too, right?
Victor Lopez, owner of Heat Shock 2. Thanks so much for being with us and sharing your experience with us as well.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to let you know about the applications that are now open for our Student Ethics Scholarship. It's part of our military line. It recognizes college-bound students and adult learners who are children or spouses of the military. Now, you can learn more about this $2,500 scholarship and Better Business Bureau's military line, which provides financial education resources to the military community and their families at bbb.org/CT. I want to thank all of our guests today for sharing their experience and their expertise to us. A big thank you to all our veterans for their service to our country. That does it for Trust Talks. We'll see you next time.